about 2075. Canty, and I'm co-assistant director of Missoula Community Access Television. I'm here tonight as an MCAT producer to ask you to participate in a television show about media literacy with some guests from the Missoula area and other parts of Montana. It is a live call-in show. We invite you to participate by calling 542-6228. The name of the show is a television program, and the idea is that what is it that we need to think about, reflect about as we receive information from all of this tremendous, wondrous amount of available technology these days, and we're going to think about it, to create with it, to turn it into the kind of tool that we would like to have to assist us in our day-to-day life. We have some great folks here to talk to tonight, and I'm going to introduce them beginning with Dr. Beverly Chin, who's on my far left. Thanks for coming. Welcome.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And Beverly is based out of the University of Montana. She is a professor of English and director of the Montana Writing Project. She is co-director of the English Teacher Preparation Program and director of composition at the University of Montana. She's president-elect of the National Council of Teachers of English, and in 1987 she chaired the Communication Arts Action Group for Project Excellence, and she has recently been appointed to the Montana Education Goals 2000. Thank you for coming. And that is an abbreviated biography, so you can imagine that she's quite accomplished, and I look forward to hearing what she has to say about media literacy. On her right, and a little bit closer to me, is Lynn Merrick, who is a seminar leader for the Montana Committee for the Humanities Wish Media Education Institute, and she's an independent filmmaker who lives in Belgrade, Montana. She has taught art, film, and video production and criticism in the Bozeman schools and has taught media studies at Montana State University. It's near and dear to my heart, but I'm pleased also that Lynn has chosen to become very active in the formation of a Bozeman access television station. So she's a busy person too. Gwen Hoppe is now working as a media artist in the schools with the 3 Missoula area high schools, and she has worked so far this year, in less than a year, with hundreds of student producers from the Missoula area. And it's been a real pleasure for me to work with her through MCAT. In addition, she's studied film and television at Montana State University and has produced several programs using this facility, Missoula Community Access Television. And she is the proud producer of an award-winning piece about local farmers market. So,
thanks, Mary.
Nice
to be here.
Yeah. So we're here to talk about media literacy tonight, and I'm just wondering if we could open perhaps with you, Lynn, and or Beverly, about what are some of the components of media literacy? What are we talking about? What is the, how do you define it a little bit?
Would you like to go ahead?
Certainly, I'd be happy to start. I believe media literacy is the ability of people, students in particular in our schools, to not only receive images in a critical, creative way, but also to produce images, verbal and visual images, in a creative and responsible manner. So I think visual literacy is something that our schools really need to embrace and to become more aware and more active in the education of our young people today. We are surrounded with media. We know we're inundated with media, and I think it's our responsibility as educators to help students sift through all of the images, verbal and visual, so that they understand how these images affect them and how they can affect people and ideas by being creative and involved in the production of images as well.
I think that's one of the tenets that's so important in the national and international organizations, what she said about not only being producers of meaning, but also what is the viewer's relationship to that. As far as other components, other ones that I know of some organizations dealing with are a sort of phrase called audiences negotiating meaning. In other words, what is the reception of the meaning, the viewer or the reader's relationship to that? What's the institutional framework for that, the corporate controlling interests of the production of the meaning in mass media, representational issues of race, gender, sexuality issues, construction, that all media are constructions, and ideological visual messages that come through the medium, or through any sort of media. Also figuring out what media means. I mean, there's educational technology, instructional technology, media arts education, media literacy, media education, all of these different things that people call them that I think can be confusing about exactly what it is that we're talking about, even literacy, you know.
Now, I mean, I think there's two issues here. One is that all of a sudden we're facing a lot of available technology, so we receive more information than we ever have before. Mediated information, information that filters through both the technology and somebody else's eyes. But, you know, what is the need for us to analyze media? I mean, what has brought us to this point? What is your take on what's happening in the media these days that we receive?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
That's a good question. I think that things like the O.J. Simpson thing, Tanya Harding, Rodney King, that everyone has something to say about that. And for me, I just question, where does that discourse come from? I mean, that we respond to something and have an opinion about it. And how does that get constructed? How do things come to have meaning? I mean, and not just what we watch, but how we watch it. And that's a great concern to me, is that it be put into some sort of historical, cultural, social context, that these things don't just drop out of the air, or, you know, international issues of Somalia, or, you know, whatever is topical, that we just, in this country anyway, it's handled that way, or it's just the soundbite, like you're talking about, and that we have to me, there's no historical, primarily, context for receiving this information, and you know, some sort of understanding of that and how this comes to be, that's what's topical in the society. And that's why I think that maybe it's starting to be something that, or I'll just say, like, educators using media in the classroom to look at media in education rather than just to teach the subject area, what is happening in the media that they're using, rather than just popping a tape in, using it for Romeo and Juliet that they just read and now they're going to watch it. That's that sort of thing.
I think it's very important, picking up on what you were saying, that people have a chance to talk about the images that they're receiving through media. That makes the reception not a passive reception, but an active interaction, because each viewer, each listener brings his or her own background and experiences and emotions to that particular event. And we all interpret the event personally, but by our conversations about that one event, media event, we begin to see that there are different perspectives, different agendas that we're bringing into the event, and I get to reshape and rethink my ideas. And so that becomes an active, critical, and creative event that makes the media event a culturally shared event. And I think that's very, very special. That's why I think it's so important that people, and again, students in particular, talk about the images, visual and verbal, that they're receiving, because it's not, the meaning is not in the media. The message is, the meaning is within us, and how we share and communicate those ideas with each other.
I like that too, what you're saying about that there's the act of creating the production, then there's also the act of being the creative viewer, and that's taking the production or the idea or the message as the jumping off point to take it on your own. And I think that is really different than the way we've been taught so far.
Plus, I think that it sort of adds dimension to this argument about what I've seen some people write about the moral panic of television, or, oh, it's just a drug, but it's here to stay, and we can have some sort of creative, like you said, creative relationship in terms of empowerment, really, as a viewer, which can be a stimulating experience, I think, rather than just always, well, this is dangerous, we've got to get rid of it, and there's a lot of bad TV, but you can have other dimensions to whatever that reaction is, I think. But
that's what I think yesterday when I was on an radio interview show about this, and the journalist was asking me to what extent, and this wasn't her question directly, but I thought it was interesting, to what extent is the media literacy movement taking it from the angle that they're media bashing? You know, and to what extent are they? And I think that's a really interesting question. How do you respond to that? And you were getting to that a little bit, you know, that you don't look at it as necessarily a bad thing.
Well, plus I think it can be a very alienating thing to put down on student media, teen media, whatever teens if we're talking about high schoolers or elementary, what they're watching. And, you know, to sort of put a moral judgment on that is, I think, just instantly puts a wall up in the classroom, in that there's other ways to deal with that, ask questions about it or whatever, rather than just constantly making a moral value judgment about it.
Well, media is part of our culture, and what we want to do is help young people understand how the media is part of the transmission of that culture, and to help them shape and transform and understand and analyze and evaluate aspects of culture that they value, that sends positive, humane messages, as opposed to the other media and other messages that aren't so positive and humane, and have young people take a critical, ethical stance on what media means to them, and be proactive about that. It's very important.
I think at this point it's worth mentioning that half of our production crew here tonight is from the Media Artists in the Schools program in the 3 high schools, which is something we're really proud of, and we want to thank them for their help, and also invite people to please call in with questions. We'd love to hear from you, 542-6228, or if you have ideas that you would like to share with us, we promise to be good listeners and use your ideas creatively, so please participate. But I want to ask Gwen, who is the media artist in the schools currently, and I hope intends to be for the next little while yet, what is it like to teach production right now in the schools? You're teaching television production primarily, but maybe you could describe a little bit about what you're finding in student production ideas and process.
I don't know why I'm surprised, but I'm surprised sometimes by their creativity behind some of it. Because maybe I see them go to class and they're kind of into the thing, and then they come up with these great productions. It's like I didn't know how much was there. I'm working with a student today who has this great idea. She wants to do something on helping people understand that finding yourself is a process. And just because you don't know where you are right then, and it's like, wow, you know, you're 15 years old. By making something, I think they have to go through a lot of decision making. And some of it's from things that they've seen on TV that they're imitating. Some comes from their heart. And that's what I really like about the high schools is, you know, they haven't, you know, they don't have years of training. They've been watching TV, but they're not making this message that's so, you know, doctored up and trying to, you know, to just zero in on that audience. It's more free expression, I think. Whereas, you know, on TV, they spend a lot of money and time making this message, you know, they're manipulating us a bit, and, you know, students become the manipulators too, but they get some insight into that. I just work with a wide variety of people too, and a lot of projects, you know, all groups. There's people who want to do hunting videos. That's fine. You know, sports videos. Other are, you know, doing art videos and just a wide variety of things.
Is it possible to teach analysis without teaching the technical production tool part of it, and vice versa? What are you running into when you're teaching the technology? What's coming about in terms of the broader picture of media literacy? And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I'm not heading anywhere with that. I just wonder, you know, when people get involved in a process, often it opens up so much in their own thinking about what they're seeing on television or about what they're hearing on the radio or that kind of thing.
A lot of times in the editing room, I think that's where they realize how much, what they can do with it, for one thing, and then what they've been seeing, that, oh, that's how they put that together, that message together. I probably would like to have more analysis involved with our projects. Students will comment on other students' projects, you know, and sometimes they'll, you know, there's something wrong with that. You know, what was that message saying? And great, you know. You know, I think we probably should have more time spent on the subject of, it'd be nice probably to be doing like maybe a week of media analysis maybe before we get into production. To take a look at, you know, what are they doing out there? Well, maybe it should come afterwards. I don't want to, you know, sometimes just the natural is very good. It's real fresh. So
I think it's such an interesting issue in part because I think that in terms of my own analysis of popular media and teen representation in that, is the teens aren't faring very well. And so it's been interesting for Gwen to be so involved in this project and have us start to run so many student productions and get such a positive response in the community that people who are watching it, myself included, I happened to be channel surfing about a week ago and I stopped. I'd seen the program before. I'd seen the student production that was running on MCAT, but I hadn't seen it on my home television yet. And here I was sitting in my comfortable living room, and I just stopped and really watched it, and I thought, I think people's, if they're not over mediated, you know, if they're not just so saturated, I think they still respond to what's really true that comes through the technology, and I think that they're not totally, you know, callous to think, oh, I want to watch, you know, 911, or I want to watch, you know, but they really can. I know as a viewer at that moment, I was just so taken by, this is real, this is my town, these are my neighbors, you know, that, and it was so neat, and we really have gotten that response through that program. It's been kind of heartening that way, that we still, even as viewers, can be open to what's real.
Yeah. It's kind of empowering too, I think. It's like some students say, wow, that was really fun, I didn't know I could do that. And then to see it on TV, and they're taking part in that big media thing, it's like, yeah, I have a place in there. And it just, I think it's got to make them more active in this whole the viewing and everything. Yeah. It's like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. It's like, yes.
That's great.
So,
well, there's students, you know, who once they make a cut, say with Super 8 film or something, or with video, they have to make a decision. Is it going to be on motion? Is it from a long shot to a close-up? Any kind of decision like that. I mean, I over and over have heard students say, I never watch TV again the same because I see those things now. I never used, it was that's seamless, the word seamless editing, and that sort of psychological continuity, and I just think that is the best testimony, you know, for to act, and for people who counter, do we really need to be having video production in the schools? And students saying that is, it's just a wonderful thing, I think, in terms of awareness. And I've heard that with just hanging out with Gwen the last couple of days, and with students in the school, and from teachers too. Just you can just tell what that's meaning in terms of empowerment, like you said.
What is the impact of media in our lives these days, do you think? And I want to make this personal, too, instead of more general, but I told you I would ask you about special media moments that you might have experienced in your life, either turning points in the way that you saw media or turning points in your own life. And in a way, I think this ties back into the whole media bashing idea, because in reality, in my own life, I'm like, I don't think media is terrible inherently. I think it's wonderful inherently. I mean, I think it's absolutely, just like what you were saying, powerful, and probably has the potential to be very, very good. It's just that we need to take that individual and collective responsibility to figure, I think the first part of it is figure out what we're seeing, but then the next exciting step to it is how to have it be either truly reflective or be a true voice or be the power that it really can be. So, you know, the question to you as individuals is, has media been powerful in your life? And if so, you know, what comes to mind for you about that?
Well, I like to make videos because I like to make things, just like anybody, and that's what they're doing. They're making something, they're constructing something. And when I realized that I could create this thing with a beginning, a middle, and an end, it's like, whoa, and then it kind of became a translator for me. If something was really important, I'd say, wow, I could make a movie out of that. Maybe I didn't always do that, but it was a new way of looking at life, kind of, as it's kind of like writing to me. It's that's, I think, what writers do, and you have to write when you make a video, and that's another thing I found out. So just, I think the first time I made a video and made a program, and then, you know, to see it air, it's like,
That's neat.
so.
I had another idea in mind when you said that question about a media moment. I immediately thought of a moment of watching television. But what's more important to me, and what you just triggered, is experimental film, and what that's meant to me in terms of the most stripped down, basic filmmaking, like a film that just deals with the frame, say, formal properties of film, and how that made me more aware of what I was watching. And trying to promote that more, the importance of that more, rather than being marginalized as, you know, oh, that's just art or something. And what can be built on from there, and films that visually do what you might read about in terms of film language. Like I was saying about the frame, or light and dark, or the actual just flicker of a projector. That's what's happening. What does that mean in terms of the way you have a subjective response to that? And
So you would maybe, if you were producing tonight, set it up so everybody could see studio cameras and that kind of thing. I mean, we have some producers here who like that, to take it from that angle. Like if we were sitting in a circle like this, they might have the cameras right behind us, and you just would be able to see, this is your basic old studio room. It's not this big mystery. We're not floating out here. You know, it's we're human beings who sit in chairs, and there are people standing there, and you know, that whole thing. That is another angle that's just starting to happen. I think that's partly that. Have you seen the new technique of the cameras, you know, jostling or walking, you know, that kind of thing? So.
That ties in, actually, that's a beautiful tie-in to the one of the two media moments that I was reflecting upon. And part of it is that the making of, where you have on television, the behind the scenes, the making of with the special effects, the models that are used and blown up, the physics of scaling down dynamite, and to make sure that the camera speed and the lighting all match the real-life action that's being shot somewhere else in the world, not in a studio. I think that by watching the making of a movie, it has allowed us to appreciate, without diminishing the affective response of the excitement and the horror or the mystery. It's given us the opportunity to look behind the scenes, literally, and to understand the craft and all of the decisions of making a movie, making a film, making a production. And I think that has increased our understanding of media literacy just by those one set of shows. And I think people are intrigued with how Indiana Jones, or how a Sylvester Stallone or a Die Hard movie is made, because I don't think it diminishes the excitement or the big explosion at the crucial moments. I think it really makes people quite impressed that all of this went on for a 5-second or extended 15-second shot, and how many times that particular scene had to be shot in order for it to accomplish just the right effect at that moment in the audience. And I'm just, I think people learn a lot by watching those particular shows. And of course, they're also promoting the movie at the same time. But I still think that that's a very powerful way of inviting people into media literacy. So that was something that I was thinking about when you asked us about media moments, because I'm always amazed and impressed. And when I go to see the movie a second time, perhaps, or my first time, while that may be in one part of my brain, the other part of my brain or being is enjoying the movie at a different level. So you have both analysis as well as appreciation going on simultaneously. And I think if we can have more young people, more audiences see media from both levels, the cognitive and the affective, then we're well on our way to helping people become more appreciative and analytical and evaluative about what they're interacting with. And the second media moment that I had thought about, though, is in a way related to that, and that was a conversation with a very special friend of mine who had just seen a very powerful movie. It had moved her very deeply, and she responded by saying that that this movie was absolute truth, that in fact the actors and the characters that were being portrayed, that the way that that movie portrayed those people was in fact truth. And that was real, as though she had been there, because the movie had reached out and grabbed her at so many different levels. And it made me stop and think, because I really respect how she responded to the movie. I was responding to the movie in a very different domain. I was responding to the movie as an entertainment, as a particular director, producer, script writer's twist on characters in history, real life people in history. And so I was looking at it with very different pairs of glasses than my friend was. And so we had this very interesting conversation about, well, you know, what is reality, what is truth? And that just shows to us, again, the power of the media to shape our vision of truth and reality. And it's all the more reason why we need media literacy in education from elementary through secondary and on, because if we are, again, being inundated, immersed in images, then we have to be very conscious and aware of how these images affect us and how we affect them. So I want to be very careful when we have conversations about JFK or other movies like that. I mean, what is truth? If we weren't there, and if I was there, what was my take on that particular event? If I were making a movie on it, what biases, what preconceptions would I be imposing on the script, the setting, the camera angles, the lighting? So I just think that was an interesting opportunity.
How do we handle that? I mean, that's such a good question. And if you would like to participate in this, you call 542-6228, because we would like to have you participate in this. But, I mean, what is appropriate tagging of information, or how, you know, I mean, I think right now we all are a little bit uneasy with most of the information that we're getting it's theoretically given by an objective producer, and it's the true facts. And I mean, what is if we could sit here and dream for a minute about how would the media change, or what would it look like, or how, I guess you're saying the answer in part is education, that it's not that we need to change the programs or the productions themselves, but the viewers, so they understand.
I think that that's exactly what I'm saying, because, for example, take a history text or an historical document. It's just a document. It's just a text. Somebody had to write that document or text. We as readers read the text or read the document, but the meaning, the significance of that document is what I bring to it and what we share and discuss and take from it and each other. But I can't just lay my hand on the text and say, I know the truth now, or I know reality. I don't think that there is such a thing as that. It's constructed as we talk about it, as we experience from our different perspectives. So I don't see media as inherently evil or good so much as media is media. And it's what we bring to it and take away from it that enriches us or doesn't.
Or is the public going to be comfortable with that redefinition of media in their lives, because it is a redefinition. Instead of looking towards Peter Jennings as having some answers that somebody doesn't have, if they say, that's Peter Jennings' opinion and that's really interesting, I mean, that changes the whole slant on the news. I mean, I think, to me, as a producer, as somebody in my own background, having worked on productions as well, is I think it has to be both, I guess. You know, I think it has to be changing the style of the productions as well as, and I don't know, that's vague in my mind right now. I don't have specific ideas of how to do that, but it has to be both, because right now, so much of the whole economy of the media seems to be based on, you need this because you need some expert opinions in your life about life, you know, and about and about entertainment and about, you know, so I just think maybe as the viewers change and viewership changes, that maybe the end product will change too a little bit. What age is a good age? I mean, what age, how do you start?
3. They shouldn't be watching TV before then. Well, discussion is probably good at any time, and there's probably not enough of it. I think they should leave about 2 minutes of blackness after every movie for that no commercials going on, that you sit and think about that or go do something else. And you know, because there's just not enough time, and that's what the big race is, and that's why it's kind of nice to do it in school. At Hellgate today, Lynn and I were there, and she was giving a talk, and she showed some clips. I don't know if I'm, you know, if you plan to talk about this later, but then we had a nice discussion. I was just surprised, all the participation, and they probably did look at TV differently after that. I don't know, is there any age too early? Probably should be talking to 3-year-olds. What do you think?
As soon as they can talk, huh?
Yeah. Look, I remember my first video image, or I know this isn't the question, but I was a kid, and I was sitting in somebody's lap, and I was watching on TV, and I swear that the man on the TV was taking the glass off the TV, and that he was, I don't know if he was going to come out or what, but I always want to duplicate that someday in video. It's like, because for a 3-year-old, all sorts of things are going on that we learn to tune out, and who talks to you about them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, that triggers for me that my very first nightmare was Mickey Mouse and Pluto and Goofy. You know, it's like kind of monsters. And where did I get that? I mean, I had to have gotten that from a cartoon or from that whole chase. The idea of a chase scene had to have been some form of moving media. I mean, that, you know, my own little movie going on in my head. This might be a good time for us to cue up your clip. Lynn brought a clip tape. We have that queued up now, and you would let us know maybe when that would run, and we'll continue. I saw that there was a little bit of jumping in here at the 3-year-old level for teaching media analysis.
What you were saying, or what you were saying about where did you get that, I'm thinking of my niece, who has not seen certain, you know, mainstream sort of big Hollywood movies, Beauty and the Beast or something, but definitely knows all the characters and has all the, I think that word intertextual, like you get this information from other things in society, little things at McDonald's, children's clothing, I mean, all these other products that exist out there that are selling, you know, a big movie, that she knows all of those things if she's never seen it, but has that relationship to it, and it's, where does that come from, you know? And
okay, let's take a look here. You won't hear our commentary about this clip, but we'll talk about it. We'll have a chance to look at it at the same time you are. Don't forget to call in. Thanks. Bye. Go ahead.
I thought at one time that overt racism had been stamped out to a great extent, but it's still alive and well.
It really doesn't matter what the economic strata is. It doesn't matter often how you're dressed. It's just the color of your skin.
Across America, black middle-class people say the hardest thing they're having to do is explain to black children why the policemen they saw on television beating Rodney King were not punished. Broderick Johnson leads a group of black professionals who try to help poor black boys.
Does it make it harder to get our message across? It probably does, because there are a lot of youth who are bitter today about what happened, and they don't want to hear, some of them may not want to hear, well, hang in there, the system will work, get an education, move up in society, and these kinds of things won't happen to you. We can't tell them that today.
The not guilty verdicts in the LA police trial have shaken black middle-class complacency. Many middle-class black men say today they've been reminded that what happened to Rodney King could happen to them just because they're black. Carol Simpson, ABC News, Washington.
We'll continue in a moment.
So in my interview, they told me how Dow can take all this coal and turn it into clean burning gas.
Wouldn't that cut down on acid rain?
You got it.
Sounds like one serious job, son. I just wish it wasn't so far away.
Gonna miss you, Mike.
Hey, take care of this for me.
You can make a difference in what tomorrow brings.
Son, show them what you got.
'Cause Dow lets you do great things.
Yeah. Are we back on? Okay, thanks. Lynn, you'll have to describe that to us, because I had the TV, I confess, turned to the wrong channel. I did do a run-through, but it was the wrong channel. So can you describe the clip?
What the audience saw, they saw the whole thing,
Right.
I think. It's just a little sort of montage about what are the implications of the Rodney King beating for this professional organization that's trying to help young black men, as they were talking about them, to be successful in society when this is was so prevalent in 1992, and how are they going to deal with that in the terms of the country's psyche. Interviewing them, you know, the little cutaways to the kids in the school and just talking about them. And then it goes into the commercial, which I think you saw some of apparently middle-class black family and the son going off to work for Dow. And I've used it today in Hellgate. It was an hour discussion of all the things that students could see in that. The main thing was what messages did you get, both ideologically, value messages, and visually, that made you have a response to it that you did? Lots of students were saying families are not like that, you know, a boy, a girl, a happy family. You know, what are all the racial issues in that? I just happened to tape it during that, just took it off the news, because I knew with the Rodney King media event that there was going to be some interesting construction of the news on television. So that's, if that sort of fills you in on what it was visually.
Because then today, you could turn and see the opening arguments on the O.J. Simpson trial. I mean, here we are. It's like we've come around the circle.
They preempted the news tonight for that. I was amazed.
They preempted everything all day long.
I thought, who cares? I guess they do care.
Yeah. So what came out of that discussion today for you? Did you just show this one clip, or you showed some other things today at Hellgate High School?
Just that, and then a video art clip.
Isn't that amazing? And that generates an hour discussion on
violence, on the manipulation in it, Dow chemical. Why were they supporting that? What, you know, we had two classes. It was interesting. They had kind of different flavor in each class. I think the second group was, talking about the violence in it, and the first group, we covered a lot. So
I think the discussion, and I wish I could have been there listening to the students' discussion on the clip that we just saw. I think discussions like that are essential if we want to educate people for media literacy. In our discussion, they saw things that they would never have seen had they been at home by themselves or with friends in the normal environment of watching television. And because you brought it into the classroom and asked students to look at it with a different kind of thinking. In fact, that's what they were doing. They were thinking instead of just being passive and letting it wash over them. And I think that's what we need to do, and that's what I see as part of media literacy and media education in our schools today. And that should begin in the elementary levels and go all the way through, because that's what makes them critical thinkers, readers, writers, and viewers. And listeners and speakers, hopefully, as well.
The students even said that. Like when I said, would you have seen this at home, like all the things that they saw, cuts, the lighting, where's the camera, what's the camera doing. I asked them if they would have seen that if they watched at home in the living room. They said no.
Right.
So, I mean, putting it in another context is just, it's possible, you know, for all that to happen, I think. So,
I heard someone say it was fun, too. Someone said, well, this is fun.
Good.
Good. I'm pleased. I know there's controversy about whether there should be the cable channels, commercial cable channels, televisions in the schools, and whether students should be required to view the was it 15 minutes a day of news through these commercial television programs. However, I have seen some wonderful discussions when teachers asked students to analyze what was the news, what was the headline story, how does it compare to the 5 o'clock news on other network channels, what are the advertisements, was it a male or a female broadcaster, how did they juxtapose, just like you just shared with us with the media clip, how did they juxtapose the news with then the commercials? And so I have seen teachers do wonderful conversations and mini lessons on media literacy, even with those channels and those televisions in the classroom where students are, in fact, the captive audience.
And it is a process, I think, of saying as a nation that not only is it time to engage in this kind of instruction, really, and part of the effectiveness in the instruction is to let it speak for itself, to give enough time for people to really chew over a little bit of what they've seen. But also, I mean, the media economy is so vast right now. I mean, I think it's bigger, my assessment is, bigger than any of the natural resource economy issues, that kind of, I mean, we export so much media from this country to the rest of the world. And I just think we need to have that as a responsibility as well, is to, I think we'll turn this back up when the time comes. What are we exporting? You know, what images, what ideas, and that's where I do feel a little embarrassment, a little bit of shame about that, you know, that we aren't taking that a little bit more seriously. That it's not just our 3-year-old kids, it's 3-year-old kids everywhere. Okay, we do have a call on line 1, so I'm going to turn us up here. And hi, you're live on a television program. Is there someone you'd like to direct your call to?
Anyone can take it on. I was looking at that portion of the clip that you ran before, and the Dow Chemical commercial with the black family. And, you know, ever since the Civil Rights Movement, you know, after the 60s, you know, then the numbers of minority people that we started seeing in commercials like this, you know, vastly increased. So we see, you know, all kinds of minorities appearing in these spots. And I've always been, you know, kind of mystified by, you know, this is a feel-good message. And I don't know whether we, the viewers, are supposed to then come away with the impression that, you know, that this minority is doing well and they're just as good as the rest of us and they're doing even better. And what concerns me is that the message that reaches the majority of viewers, and we're talking about media literacy, then gets the impression that most of this minority group is doing just fine, you know, that they're like these people. I have not drawn any particular conclusion. I just wanted to throw that out and wonder if anybody had any thoughts for it. And by the way, your competition tonight is the president and OJ, so that may be why you're not getting as many calls. You're doing a good job. And that's it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for calling.
Yep.
So, did that come up today in your discussions?
Yeah, and in fact, well, teachers yesterday in a workshop where I showed this, and then in both classes today, I think, they use the word neutralize, which I thought was really perceptive to say. That commercial neutralizes what was going on before and sort of, you know, diffuse whatever issue could have come out of the little news thing before that. And anyway,
isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think that leads to the question, you know, what kind of real emotions are we experiencing in our, you know, I mean, how much true anger do you see on television. I mean, you see bites, we talked about that, little video, news bites of, you know, floods or torture or civil war, that kind of thing. But you don't ever really see people just standing up and saying, I'm angry about this and I want to share my views tonight. It's more that, that whole, it seems like we run into a lot of neutralization kind of in our characters. So maybe it's time for us to express a lot of different emotions, you know, via the media. That would be something interesting. We see a lot of that on Access Television, which is really fun.
Yeah.
We see the full gamut. We see a lot of passion, that's how I describe it. And one reason I think Access Television has been so successful in Missoula is there is so much passion here. It's artistic passion, it's whatever, political passion, religious passion, but it is passion. And it's been a very interesting process that we get a lot of calls of somebody loves this or hates that, and they would, okay, we have another call. They would like to, we have the opportunity here to say, come on down. Come on down. You have a viewpoint, you have a feeling about this, come on down. We support that. It's interesting. Okay, we have another call on line 1, so I'll go ahead and turn us up a little bit. Hi, you're on a television program. Oh, not yet. There you go. You're on a television program. Welcome. Who would you?
Hi, I just wanted to congratulate and thank the panel for a thoughtful program thus far. And I also wanted to wish you all a happy Super Sunday, which is, of course, a totally contrived holiday based on mass media. I think the 30-second airtime for the commercials during the Super Bowl this Sunday are going for, what, $1 million? So a minute of just the airtime, not including any of the production costs, would fund MCAT probably for 15 to 20 years. And I guess I would love to see commercials and news shows and any show with the total amount of money spent superimposed or down in the corner. I think that really helps people understand media and understand some of the manipulation. And I'll hang up, and if you care to respond, I'll listen. Thanks.
We seem to keep coming around to the question money in the media. Let's talk about money in the media a little bit.
That ties in also with the earlier question where we were talking about commercials and whether people of color or ethnic minorities are shown on commercials or other television programs. Part of it, of course, is the financial aspect that drives media. And as we know that our society has changing demographics within the United States. So as our population changes, it behooves business and, in fact, commercial media to reach out to that changing audience and to involve them in the purchasing, in the selling, in the buying of whatever products and services that commercial is advertising. On the other hand, one could say that businesses are trying to be socially responsive and responsible by showing ethnic diversity in different programmings and different commercials, so that the images or the older images of ethnic minorities are not being perpetuated, such as the Asian American, the Hispanic American, the Black American, aren't always in certain kinds of images, which are often less powerful, less articulate, or less part of the mainstream. And in fact, we have a very diverse, culturally pluralistic society. And so some people might say that the media is trying to reflect that. Now, to what degree it's being honest or manipulative is certainly open for wonderful conversations and discussion. But I think that is part of it. On the one hand, media is being driven by reach out to this changing population and offer them the goods and services. On the other hand, it's, gee, we need to be showing people of all walks of life in all kinds of roles, men and women, old people and young people, to show that we are being socially responsive to what society's asking us to do. So there are two ways, I think, to look at that.
I struggle with that too, because I think, you know, I think that's true. I think that the changing culture puts pressure on existing media to change itself, you know, and I think that's an interesting process to watch and see that go on. And I think, and we'll get to this in a minute, and maybe even the broader division is what's happening to women, you know, or what's happening, you know, I mean, that's another level to the discussion. What were you going to say?
to say?
I interrupted you a little
No,
bit on that.
I can't remember.
last. The money in the media.
Oh,
Is that
well, I was thinking in terms of what Beverly was saying, just with the Dow ad, that a lot of students brought up today, that sort of, why are they on a rooftop? And, you know, generally we would associate them, the sort of separation again of us, them, you know, who made it, what viewer is it for? But they were wondering about the sort of penthouse apartment, garden apartment versus a ghetto. Dow is very questionable about whether they're really helping, quote, other cultures. I mean, what all is being sold there? What is being marketed in terms of a way of thinking about the representation of people? I mean, it's about the representation of an issue of race. Anyway, I think that's kind of what you're saying in terms of struggling with that, with...
Yeah, I just think it's such a huge, totally interconnected issue, you know. And my latest theory, because I am a skeptic, is that anything you see advertised on television or elsewhere is probably something you don't absolutely have to have. That it's, you know, the necessities are things that usually don't have huge advertising budgets, you know, that they're usually the things that they're trying to create consumers rather than, and my second point on that is nothing sacred. I mean, it seems like everything's for sale in this society, so I have both feelings about it. But I also recognize what Beverly said, that it does change depending on, it is a dynamic, to a certain extent, a dynamic system. It isn't just a static system in terms of images and cultural, you know, messages. We do have another call on line 1, so I'm going to plug us in and turn us up a little bit and see what we... Hi, you're live on a television program. Welcome.
Hi, I guess I have a provocative, possibly ridiculous thought, and I'm just going to kind of spew it out. I think, you know, in many ways, mainstream media is today's version of Orwell's Big Brother. For anyone who's read 1984, you know that the fictional country Oceania was controlled by brute force at the base, with continual indoctrination with what they call telescreens. And at the end of that novel, Winston Smith, who's you know, the protagonist, the hero that we want to, who we root for, who we want to overcome this terrible tyranny, sheds tears of conviction. He truly loves Big Brother. He's converted. It seems to me almost that the media has the potential to bring about a kind of control that harkens back to Orwell's novel. I found myself, for example, getting emotional to the point of conviction or even conversion while watching a political clip of Nancy and Ronald Reagan a few years back, or the look of the mother on the Dow commercial that you showed us a little earlier. I know a teacher years ago who brought his television into his classroom. He hung it from the ceiling with a noose with a sign that said, "Death to the intruder." And I'm wondering if it's possible that TV or the media generally is out of control, and that we will ultimately be led by the ideology of Beavis and Butthead or Jennings and Brokaw, and like Winston Smith, ultimately come under the spell of big business TV to the point where we are truly letting others think for us. And I was just wondering, maybe a few of us should wear white robes and walk around with signs that say, "Stop watching TV," instead of "The end is near," although the two might be interchangeable at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. I like that. I like how you phrased your thoughts about that.
Thanks.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit. To what extent does television in particular, because that's what this is asking, have the power to become Big Brother in our lives, and that we truly become followers and not be stimulated at all? Or worse than that, worse than not being stimulated, how much are we controlled by that? That's a really good point. We haven't really gotten into that. And you might want to talk about your own life. I mean...
Well, that's why I like MCAT. For one thing, it's local. It's feeding our own culture down here. It's challenging some of that because there is a big influence. And if you go to any football game, you'll see that, well, like the Grizzlies, you'll have the Army down there in one corner. This is ROTC shooting off cannons. It's sponsored by Coca-Cola and all these things, and it's all this culture, and then it's on TV. And so it's such a big ball of everything that I think it's important to step away and go do something else. And, you know, but the more, I think, media literacy you have and how critical you can be of it, more protection you have from it just going into your subconscious and stirring around and coming out.
Well, hopefully, too, the workshops that you and Lynn are doing in the schools, too, will graduate or generate more individuals who want to enter the media because they have a vision of the ethical messages that they want to share with a larger public. So I think that by the workshops that you're doing, it's very important that we continually educate people to become, on the other end, the creators of our media. It's something that you were saying earlier. I think that we have to have responsible people creating media, as well as us, the audience, becoming very critical consumers, if you will, of media. But we have to have both. And I think media is taking the place of where books were generations ago, where when books and popular fiction was first being written and printed, and people were allowed to read this, people were very afraid that our culture was just going right down the tubes, because all of a sudden people were not just reading sacred texts of religious meaning, but in fact they were being exposed to all of this other stuff that was fiction. So I think we have to learn to live with it.
Although I do worry about this. Here's one of the scenarios I worry about the fabric of our culture, and that is that television is creating a huge disenfranchised population. And that's because I think people do watch television and think, why can't I have that kind of apartment or car? Or why can't I have that? What they see on television isn't close to the diversity that we see in our everyday lives. And I mean economic diversity, racial diversity, cultural diversity, the choices that we all make as individuals. We just don't even see enough of how people are constructing their lives. And so we see this very small, very carefully defined picture, and so few people fit into that. And it really worries me that emotionally they sit watching television in personal moments with their television set that have nothing to do with their lives, and they're not getting any support for their lives, I guess I'm saying. And I see kind of a weaving, the cultural weaving maybe coming apart as a result of that people feel worse than they might otherwise as a result of having had a media experience.
On the other hand, we have shows that are on that deal with nature. I mean, I know more about the ocean because of Jacques Cousteau, or I know more about space because of Carl Sagan and the Cosmos series. There are educational programs on media that our world would be quite limited if we didn't have access to those wonderful nature and science and botany and biology and ecology.
And I've learned a lot about war because I've seen it. No, I really have. I mean, that's really taught me a lot about how to form my own opinion about aggression or conflict or that kind of thing. So I know it's a dynamic question.
It's what we choose to watch and what we look at when we watch it. It's very powerful.
We are getting the signal that we have just a few minutes to wrap things up. Is there anything, a last thought that you'd like to add? Or I think it feels like we're just getting our group going here, our clips and our audience, but that's what I told you at the very beginning, that this is a pretty huge topic. We didn't get to women in the media. That sounds like it's a whole nother show, but I would like to talk about that at some point. I think it's important and a difficult discussion in a lot of ways. I need to thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And I need to thank MCAT for the opportunity to have this discussion live on television and to have many more like it that are shown on MCAT on a regular basis. And my thanks to Randy and Lori, my co-workers, Paul Hart, Andy Thogerson helped to direct, Bob Cushman and the MCAT Board of Directors who continue to work very hard. We did receive some support funds for the Media Artists in the Schools program and Lynn's visit to Missoula from the Montana Arts Council, the Montana Committee for the Humanities, Missoula Public School District number 1. I need to thank the crew, and I need to thank my old friend McCarthy Coyle, who I've had many long discussions with about this topic, and he was one of the first people who I had a chance to really think about this with. And also to the television audience out there, we know we would be nothing here without you, and we really appreciate your participation. I don't know that you know how much that is a real connection for those of us who have a chance to participate in a live call-in show. So thank you very much, and we hope you tune into a television program. Should we have another one in the future, we'll try and let you know about it. Thanks. Bye-bye.